Well, the short side is that up until the day before the election, I wasn't going to run. Or not the election, I should say, the filing deadline. I wasn't going to run. I thought about it. I'd been thinking about it probably for the last 40 years, but my job prevented me from taking a high-profile position. And now that I'm retired, I ran out of excuses. I have a long list of why I couldn't, shouldn't, and my family didn't want me to run, but there's a couple of big issues that overrode those. The long list of small reasons, personal reasons, and there's a big reason here, and it has to do with neighborhoods, and it has to do with the way we run our city, and I just felt that I could bring some ideas that would be options for hope, and if you've got options and you've got hope, you can make a plan, and I think we need better planning, and we need to include neighborhoods, and we need to include the majority of voters, which right now doesn't seem to be the case. Well, it's my total strategy. So one of the only reasons I'm running, because approval voting has locked out the neighborhoods, and it's marginalized the majority of votes that were cast in the last 10 years and the last 5 elections. And when I looked at those, I said, this can't be right. I ran the numbers 2 or 3 times, and I've given you a sheet of it there. I think you'll find it interesting. And it doesn't make sense, while at the same time everybody's talking about what a wonderful idea approval voting is. The reality for the neighborhoods doesn't match the enthusiasm down in City Hall about approval voting. And the raw data that I've looked at, that I got from the Cass County Auditor's Office, seems to indicate that it's put us on a worse trajectory for blocking out neighborhoods and for blocking out the majority of votes that are cast in the elections, especially with the idea that we can have 17 vote options to fill just 2 seats. Now, the mathematics in that gets to be foggy, but the numbers, once you put them in a spreadsheet, they kind of tell a real clear picture that I think needs to be told, and that the voters understand it, and maybe we can look at a modern council government, which is a blend of the best, perhaps, of both the commission and the council type approach, where you have both at-large and neighborhood representations. Right now, there's a lot of talk about, these 4 people can represent 38 neighborhoods, which is what the city commission, the city hall has on their website. We have 38 neighborhoods, and I thought, well, I can name a dozen of them, but so the neighborhoods are too invisible in the process. No, I think we could take away 2 seats and not leave the mayor out of it. 2 seats on the commission. There's 4 right now. And I think we could take away 2 seats, have 2 seats at large, including the mayor, and then maybe 8 wards, if you want to call them, or alderman districts, or neighborhood democratic districts, or whatever you want to name it. I mean, and it's important. The names are important. So when you call it ward system, the first thing I think of is it almost sounds like a gulag. It sounds like wards. It sounds like a hospital. It doesn't reflect, I think, the concept. It just becomes a word that kind of loses its meaning and gets lost in a shuffle of definitions. But the basic bottom line is that whether you call them wards or not, we don't have neighborhood representation. Neighborhoods are 100% not part of the process. Not necessarily. I don't think automatic anything is very good, from my experience. People put things on automatic pilot and then they crash or they don't go where they're supposed to. Well, Fargo's already divided into wards. We just don't recognize them under the current system we have. Name 1 ward where it's recognized as a ward. 0. Well, I think you do it with a well thought out plan to avoid creating gerrymandering type approach to it. That wouldn't be good. It would be as bad as adopting approval voting to improve what was already broken in the first place, that approval voting has made worse now. So if we just go and we start saying, well, we can take these neighborhoods and we'll kind of make them go this way and that way and gerrymander them, that's playing politics with the neighborhoods. The neighborhood's probably better off being ignored, tell you the truth, than being put into play as some kind of a political football. Thank you. Well, there's 38 identified neighborhoods, and I think if you take the contiguous neighborhoods, you could come up with a real nice block of call them wards, call them alderman districts, call them whatever we want, but they're neighborhood representatives. You could take 38 and divide it by, say, 10. Then you would take 4 of the neighborhoods that we have identified, and if they're contiguous, and the population reflects, 1/10 of the population, which is about what we're talking about for each ward, then I think that would do the trick. I think every neighborhood could elect their own representative, and we would have more input from the people who are most affected by the decisions made downtown, instead of only finding out that their part of the plan is to pay the special assessments. I think through a process like this, and by the way, I want to thank the chamber and you guys for doing all this. My campaign, I should have said in the beginning, is about not me getting elected. It's about me making sure that I bring to the race some common sense, some solid information, some solid options that we can look at and build better, while at the same time realizing that any mistakes we made in the past, they're in the past. We got to move forward, including this approval voting system, which was first in the nation, which in my opinion, and my research says, really ought to be the last in the nation too. It's a failed experiment, and here's why. The experts say this type of system is not good for cities over 50,000, number one. And the experts also say that the approval voting system isn't designed for it's not designed for multi-seat races. It's designed mainly for single-seat races. It's good for boardrooms. It's good for small cities. It was good for a long time. It's been good for 75 years for Fargo, except now we've grown. And we've grown out of the idea that we have neighborhoods. And I think that the neighborhoods then reflect what we should do to bring Fargo up to date. It's a shame you have to ask that question. I mean, really. I mean, if we got a situation like you're describing that needs to have some remedy, we got a bigger problem than the remedy's going to solve. It's a person problem. It's probably the fact that we don't have any more than 4 candidates to vote for, 2 at a time, and when we vote for them, the guys that win get this much of the vote. Every time we vote for 2 candidates, the guys that win or the gals that win, they get this much of the vote. The other 3/4, the other 75% of the votes cast aren't for any of the people that won the election. I think that's a bigger problem, and maybe contributes to the question that should we have disclosure of conflicts? Because when you don't have anything but a need to get 16% of the vote to sit on the city commission, you do have problems that are potentially there, and I don't know what the answer is other than making sure that we have more neighborhood information coming into the decision-making process, and we don't get it now. 100% of the neighborhoods are blocked out. It might be, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, it does give access to people from their neighborhoods who don't have representation after work. I think it depends on what the ballot question is, and whether or not it's affecting, like, maybe the Constitution or the Home Rule, and that we should probably consider something like that more democratic than just opinion or consensus. But, if you get a good city official, why would you want to get rid of him? Because you've got like an arbitrary term limit. Excuse me. And if you've got a bad city commissioner who just keeps getting reelected because of name recognition, I don't know. That's called a dilemma. That's two horns on the dilemma, and I think you'd have to err on the side of being smart about it, and that would be, you'd have to have term limits. Yeah. Well, you know, I went up to City Hall and I got the job description for the city audit or the city administrator, and that's a big job. And the mayor has suggested that Mahoney, so for re-election, he's suggested that maybe we should make it a full-time position. And you know, and given the nature of the city's growing as big as it is, I don't think that's a bad idea at this time. I think it could be a good idea under a modern council form of government where you have a mayor, full-time job, 2 at-large commissioners like we have now, and we have 4, and then 10, 8 aldermen, alderwomen who are on the council. And under that situation, I think the mayor should be a candidate for consideration for a full-time job. Okay. Because we expect people to be accountable to that mayor, and it's a big job. There's a lot of departments, and the insulation perhaps is not necessary. I would imagine that Mahoney's putting in 40, 50 hours a week on this thing. As a general rule, no. There may be some exceptions, but I can't think of any. Well, first thing, when is enough? I don't know. Is there ever enough? I don't know. Does it make a difference? It certainly does, especially in a race like this, because name recognition is prominent in the minds of people filling in the little holes. And so, should we restrict it? No, maybe we should just give some more access to people instead of restricting it. Like you guys are doing. You guys are doing a great job here. I mean it. I can come across as I don't care. I mean, I'm talking about the issues. I hope people can get past my own passion on this, because I watched this and I was moved to run because I felt like all we had was a pom-pom situation for this approval voting, which does not add up. How would I increase civic engagement? I would go to more neighborhood representation. I would go to a modern council form of government provided for in the statutes. And I would adopt that with 5, 6, 8 aldermen. And that would provide more input, as you suggest. Well, I think that's what the city's done. I don't think they should, so the answer is no. But they can tune into your show here, or they can tune into my website, which I haven't gotten up yet, or they can follow my tweets, or I've decided that I don't want to look like I'm carrying a placard around town, vote for me, or the end of the world's coming, or but I have a weekly report, and I'm making it available. The first edition had 50 copies, they're all gone. The second edition has 75 copies. The next edition I'm hoping to have 100. And look for my flyer, and look for on the internet, look for neighborhoods for TG.